Attention F1 fans, welcome to F1 Max. Welcome to an adrenaline-charged exploration of speed, power and pure racing excellence of the RedBull RB19. In just 5 races, this beast of a machine has left its competition in the dust, raising the question, could the RB19 be the fastest F1 car of all time? Today, we embark on a thrilling journey to uncover the 8 incredible secrets behind the RB19's lightning-fast performance. From its awe-inspiring engine to its masterfully crafted chassis and Triple Threat DRS, get ready to witness the driving force that makes this RedBull monster an unstoppable force on the track. Join F1 Max as we unveil the captivating story of the RB19, a true contender for the title of the fastest car ever. Welcome to an adrenaline-charged exploration of speed, power, and pure racing excellence. Considering its predecessor, the RB18 was one of the fastest cars we've ever seen, expectations were high for the RB19. Somehow, the RB19 has exceeded those expectations. Adrian Newey has done it again with this car. The 2023 RedBull is fast, both over one lap and over an entire race. The car seems to be able to easily pull away from the competition, particularly in the race where the RB19 has incredible race pace. None of the first 5 races have been difficult for the reigning champions. It's not just pace where the RedBull has been phenomenal. So far, the RB19 has been incredibly reliable, with no early issues like the RB18. RedBull have mentioned minor issues during races, but nothing that has actually slowed them down at all. The RB19 looks like it could break even more records than its predecessor. So, how is it that fast? RedBull struggled to compete with the Mercedes engines for years, but that does not seem to be an issue since their switch to Honda. The RedBull engine looks like the fastest on the track at every circuit. It will have also helped RedBull that they're now able to control the engine design. By controlling their engine design, RedBull can design the car around the engine. This was one of the reasons why Mercedes was so fast in the hybrid era. RedBull are also an incredibly smart team when it comes to track setup. The team are able to nail the downforce and drag needed at different circuits to put the fastest car on the track. You'll almost never hear either of the RedBull drivers complaining about the setup they're given. RedBull are always perfect when it comes to designing the correct setup for every race weekend. One of the major changes between the RB18 and the RB19 is that the latter has a lightweight chassis that the former did not. The lightweight chassis allows the RedBull to go even faster on the straights. The chassis is still designed to be sturdy and is shaped so that the RedBull has sufficient downforce through the corners, while still being fast on the straights. The RB19's pace on the straight is also related to the drag the car goes through. Throughout the hybrid era, the RedBull has been able to produce good aerodynamic design. Despite losing their chief aerodynamics engineer Dan Fallows in the winter to Aston Martin, the RedBull aerodynamic package is still the fastest on the grid. The car has very low underlying drag, which is part of the reason why we've seen the RB19 flying past other cars on the straight, even at times without the DRS. It is incredible how fast the aerodynamic design on the RedBull is. What a lot of Formula 1 fans might not realize is that the design of floor is so much more important than the bodywork. In fact, with the new regulation changes, the floor produces 20 times more downforce than the bodywork. The RedBull floor is particularly low to the track, especially when you compare it to a car like the Mercedes. This seems to have made the car have great downforce throughout all different speed corners. The RedBull seems to have incredible downforce, with the team nailing the design after the rule changes. The floor regulations were a huge challenge for all F1 teams, in a similar fashion to the engine changes that led to Mercedes' dominance in the hybrid era. RedBull have moved the diffuser channel towards the floor, which has allowed for more downforce created through the floor. One of the strengths of the RB19, which has shocked other teams, is the lack of tyre degradation. Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez seem to be having no drop-off at all when it comes to tyre degradation. The RedBull seems to have absolutely no drop-off of pace as the tyres start to wear. We saw that very clearly in Bahrain, where despite the challenging conditions, RedBull were able to manage their tyres excellently. It even got to a point where the team had to tell Max Verstappen to slow down. The lack of tyre degradation is one of the reasons why RedBull have such incredible race pace. We've seen Aston Martin and Ferrari, in particular, be a lot more competitive with Red Bull over one-lap qualifying, with the RB19 racing away on Sundays. There is no car that gets close to the Red Bull in a race. The tyre wear that Red Bull don't get is down to their design around the chassis and how much force is put through the tyres. Red Bull also doesn't need to push their tyres as hard due to the team's natural pace advantage. While there are a few things making the Red Bull fast this season, one of the major weapons Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen have at their disposal is the brilliant DRS system the car runs. The data from the races so far this season show that Red Bull's DRS makes the car 5 to 8 km/h faster than their competitors. Some experts have even said that the Red Bull has as much as 2/10 advantage over the competition with the DRS. If you want to see how fast the Red Bull DRS is, just look at the most recent race in Miami. Many would have thought that Max Verstappen would have found some difficulty in navigating through traffic as he had to start in 9th, but the Dutchman just glided past the field. In fact, Sky Sports pundit and former F1 driver Karen Chandhog said that, "Somebody was showing me some drag numbers, and when they hit the magic button, the Red Bull loses about 24 to 25% of its drag. This was for the case in Baku, whereas most others are sort of 14 to 15%. So the Red Bull is able to get rid of 10% more drag when the DRS is open than the competition, making the drivers' jobs a bit easier when making an overtake." One of the things a lot of people forget about when talking about how fast the Red Bull car is that Christian Horner has got two of the fastest drivers on the grid in his car. Max Verstappen is likely the fastest driver on the grid at the moment, with the Dutchman showing his class in previous years when the Red Bull was not leading the pack. Alongside him is Sergio Perez. Checo has a wealth of experience in Formula 1 and was comfortably the fastest driver in the midfield before his move to Red Bull. The RB19 was also engineered by one of the smartest minds in Formula 1 history. Adrian Newey has produced World Championship winning cars in 3 different decades. Newey has been the subject of huge offers from teams like Mercedes and Ferrari, but he has once again shown his value to Red Bull by producing another phenomenal car. Red Bull having such a dominant start to the season means the other 9 teams on the grid are wondering what the secret to the success of the RB19 is. Haas think they might have pinpointed the design which is aiding Red Bull's success. The stability of the RB19 has led Haas lead aerodynamicist to infer that Red Bull could be using a band design. When asked about active suspension, Molina said, "I'm not saying that anyone has it, but if someone in this field had active suspension, they would win the World Championship because you can get the car and develop it in a specific position." He added, "So that's why we think if you understand what your car is doing, or where you want to put your car, and you put your car there, you can get performance." The Haas engineer did compliment the reigning champion's work, saying, "If it were easy, everyone would be where Red Bull is now." Molina added, "So if you look at Red Bull, you can see they know where that car is and where they want to put the car exactly all the time. And that's something that is becoming more important as the regulations evolve. It does appear that the Red Bull suspension is faster than anyone else's, but it is unlikely that's down to active suspension." Ferrari have been one of the teams desperate to catch up to the blistering pace of the Red Bulls. They have one interesting idea about how Red Bull are so fast on race day. Ferrari believe that Red Bull are giving up some qualifying pace to increase their race pace. Scuderia driver coach Jock Clear has said he believes his drivers have much more of a chance challenging the Red Bulls on Saturdays instead of Sundays. Clear said, "So in some ways, we would say, okay, we're looking at what's going on in the race compared to what's going on in qualifying. We can see some difference. Maybe what we can't quite align is how those differences turn out." He added, "Do we have to take a hit in qualifying? That's always a very difficult pill to swallow because races are very often made in qualifying. So we can't afford to take our eye off the qualifying ball, but certainly we need to fully understand how we can get the race pace." Despite some thinking that changes Ferrari could make might close the gap, Clear stated how Ferrari need to improve. Clear said, "We have to take our hat off to Red Bull and say they're doing something very, very clever. That car works very, very well in race pace. We might also conclude that to do so, maybe they're giving up some qualifying pace. That's why we can compete with them, because they're not optimal in qualifying. Maybe Ferrari need to focus less on qualifying and more on race pace if they want to close the gap with Red Bull." So what do you think? Why are Red Bull so incredibly fast this season? Could anyone actually close the gap? Why not put your thoughts in the comments down below? While you're down there, why not hit the like button and subscribe? Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.